Nation of Fit and 10, welcome to day 19. It is day 19, which means it's the last day of the teens as we head into the 20s. And if you have not booked your scan, please make sure you do www.calendly.com/train on main. Book your scans ASAP if you have not already. Yesterday, I talked a little bit about shakiness. Okay, shakiness in regards to, in particular, a person that in the challenge that goes skiing every weekend and finds that they get shaky. One thing that I just want to mention here that I didn't mention yesterday in the video about shakiness, and it may not relate to skiing, and in fact, I'm probably going to say it probably doesn't, but I thought I would just mention it. If you ever notice when you finish training, you're probably shaky, okay? Especially if you train really heavy. So like very low repetition and like your force production is super, super high. All right, so like the heavier you go and the more you demand, the greater force production you have to produce, right? So you might notice after you finish weight training that you are shaky. And so I thought I would just mention the cause of this. So basically what happens is when you produce a force signal, right? It comes from the brain, it comes from the central nervous system. You tell yourself, okay, I'm gonna lift this really heavy thing. So you're sending basically a signal from your brain out to your peripheries, right, out to your whatever you're using to lift the weight up. You're sending a signal out that way, right, to the peripheral nervous system, and so this impulse, which is actually just electrochemical gradient, okay, it's just basically a change between calcium and sodium and maybe some potassium as well. I can't remember now. It's been a long time since I've delved into this. But anyways, that's what it is. And then there's also the interplay of so a nerve is not just basically a nerve is like you could think of them as little segments with junctions in between, and in between these junctions there's a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine that gets produced, and it carries the signal out to these segments, okay, so it can get to the final destination. And basically what happens is when you finish training, or when you are training and you're demanding high force production, there's a lot of this acetylcholine that's being produced from one segment to the next, okay, across the junction. What happens when you finish training is that acetylcholine is still getting produced, okay, for a short period of time, and this is what produces the shakiness, okay, if you've ever noticed it. So anyways, I thought I would just share that with you. Okay, question here, a little bit from yesterday. Sleep, irritability, difficulty falling asleep, waking up perhaps after falling asleep. One thing I mentioned that can be a very, very helpful to you is having some starchy, in particular starchy carbohydrates. So let me just list some here. Things like potato or yam, or perhaps a decent quality bread, or oatmeal, or rice, or quinoa. Okay, something along the lines of this. Before you go to bed, 25 to 50 grams, depending on your size, will help you to have a much better sleep. Okay, another thing that will help you, I carry a product called Yin Reserve. All right, this product is designed to relax the body. It's not a sedative, okay? It's really just designed to relax the nervous system and the muscles. All right, so this is something that you can take after you work out and or before you go to bed. All right, so very, very helpful. A couple forms of magnesium in this, in addition to inositol. And these products, there's a lot of research that goes behind these. So, you know, it matters what kind of magnesium you have, not just from the standpoint of it being bioavailable, but from the standpoint of what kind of tissues or cells this can get into. And this will depend on whatever it is, right? Whether it's your gut lining or your brain, your blood-brain barrier, depends on what can get through is dependent on how, in this case, I'll be very specific here, how magnesium or what magnesium is bound to. Okay, so in this case, we've got magnesium taurate, and we've got magnesium glycerophosphate. Okay, all right. Let's move along here. 5 minutes. Okay. Low cal, high protein recipe ideas. Okay, so actually, this is something I was going to talk about. This is really nothing. I'm the wrong person. Martina's much better for this, and she'll continue to put up recipes. Which, by the way, she put up another recipe the other day. I think it was for a salad. She's going to put up more recipes. But one thing that I had last night was just a little bit of boiled apple with some Greek yogurt along with some whole eggs. This was my last meal before I went to bed.
I'm not sure I understand.
Anyways, but I never do that. Okay, so actually Martina had made some boiled apple, so I added it into some yogurt, and in this case it was 2% Greek yogurt. You could go with 0%, right? You could go with very low fat Greek yogurt. Super, super delicious. Adds so much flavor. Didn't even add any cinnamon, didn't even add any lemon juice, which would have made it more flavorful, but that's one thing you could do. All right. So that with some Greek yogurt is super, super tasty. Another thing that I haven't talked about yet, and I haven't made this in a while myself because I'm trying to stick, I'm trying to stick with like real, just entirely, completely real whole food. I'm trying to avoid anything with the exception of protein powder and maybe the odd iso bar. I even don't have that many iso bars anymore. Also, iso bars for the most part are made with real whole food ingredients, which is why I like them. Anyways, I digress a little bit here. One thing you can do is you can make some protein ice cream. Okay, so how do you do this? Well, you need some sort of thickening agent, and you need a good tasty protein powder. And you can add things to this. So something like guar gum, okay, which is basically just a fiber. Some protein powder, a little bit of water and ice, and then you could add some other things in there that will add flavor. So for example, things like nuts or nut butter. Okay, now obviously nut butter is going to be quite calorie dense, so you want to be careful with this. But you could add in some things like some berries or some banana or something like that, some sort of fruit. This is going to be low calorie again, to add some flavor. And you just simply blend this up with the ice, and it's super, super tasty. So that's one way to go, low calorie and high protein, of course. You could even add in a little bit of yogurt or even some milk. Make it with a little bit of milk. Why not? Okay, there's nothing wrong with whole milk, unless you have some sort of allergy or something towards it. Okay, all right, 8 minutes. Let's get to the message of the day on this day 19, and it's something that I want to continue to stress, and that is progression, not perfection. Although, listen, hey, if you're perfect, I am all for that. So I'm not going to say don't go for perfection. That's awesome. But really what we want is, because I know for sure with everybody, there's something in your repertoire that you can improve upon. And probably there's multiple things. So let's focus on progressing in those areas, not worrying so much about being perfect. Perfect is what we're striving for. But I think, progression is definitely something we want to shoot towards, especially if we are way off, right? Or a ways off, or we know that we're deficient in certain areas, or maybe one particular area, and we really need to step up our game in that area by progressing, not going from 0 to 100, but maybe you're at 50% and let's take it to 70% or 65% or something. Do it in steps. I've talked about this before. Do it in little steps. Look for ways to progress and not focus on perfection. Okay? Positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, and for the love of God, give some gratitude. And I'll talk to you all tomorrow. See you guys.